Welcome back to Reliving Retro. This is Season 3, Episode 1.
Yeah.
Season 2 is in the books. If you want to go back and watch our ranking video and all the games that we played in Season 2, it's on the YouTubes somewhere.
Yeah.
Or maybe a link in the description. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
It was fun.
You can find it probably if you look hard enough. We have a very special guest on this week, and I'll allow him to introduce himself. Go ahead, man.
Hi, my name is Ryan, aka RetroGameBrews, and basically I'm a member of one of the 3 co-hosts of Gamers Week podcast. We do a weekly podcast that talks about video game news, as well as we cover some of the history behind video games and some of the new releases. But it's something that we've been doing since the beginning of January, and so far so good. We've been really enjoying it. The reception's been really good as far as Gamers Week is concerned, and yeah, that's who I am. And should I tell, I guess probably it's good to be, hey, you can find us on, right? So you can find us on any app that you listen to podcasts by searching for Gamers Week Podcast. And you can interact with us on Twitter by going to @GamersWeekPC.
Perfect.
Very good.
Yeah, definitely check out their podcast. It's very, very, very good, especially if you're into the video games. Couple getting to know you questions. You've been on the show before, but in case anybody missed it, what would you say your introduction to gaming was? What console? What age? That kind of thing.
So when I was a kid, my first introduction to gaming happened with the Atari 2600 in my grandmother's basement, where I think the first game I played was Keystone Capers, which is actually a fantastic game. If you like it, Gary Kitchener, the guy who created it, it's really, really fun. It's still a game I play today. But really, the foray into gaming happened one Christmas morning with the Nintendo Entertainment Action Set. Supposedly, my dad that night stayed up until 3 a.m. when he realized that he was still playing Mario from the Mario Duck Hunt cart, and had to go to work the next day, so swore off video games ever since then because he got 2 hours of sleep going into work. So
oh wow, cold turkey, huh?
Yep.
That's amazing.
Well,
decided it wasn't for him. But after that, Super Nintendo really sealed the deal, and been loving it ever since.
Yeah. What would you say some of your favorite types of games to play are? Your favorite genres?
JRPGs, those are always a big one for me. So hence why we're probably talking about Suikoden 2 today.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of games that require, how would I put it, like repetition. So things like Punch-Out, Super Punch-Out, games that you have to follow a pattern in order to play them. For some reason, really good at those games. Like, for example, I can beat Mike Tyson on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, which I was unaware of. That's like a really hard thing to do for most folks, but for some reason it just clicks for me.
That's like it's like a gamer's bucket list.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Like beating Mike Tyson in that game is certainly an accomplishment. All right, so we played Suikoden 2. This actually the past 2 weeks we've been playing it.
Yep.
Our Patreon episode is coming up. Episode 4, so in 3 weeks from now. And if you want your game played quickly, go ahead and join the Patreon. It's $5 a month to support. You can add a game to the Patreon, and we will play it eventually. Some background info on this game. So Suikoden was one of the first JRPGs to come out for PS1, correct?
Yeah, like 1996, 1995, somewhere around that area. So yeah, that
right. Something that I had read about it was that Suikoden was originally being programmed for a Konami handheld.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. And then they ended up scrapping the project when they heard about the PlayStation, and then they figured they would push it out on the PlayStation and get like a lot more exposure, I guess. And it was surprisingly very, very successful. So that's pretty cool. We're pumped about the Switch remake for Suikoden and Suikoden 2 coming out. Ryan, do you know when that's coming out exactly?
Date I don't know offhand, but as I understand, it's pretty soon.
Okay, is it 2023?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Offhand, I could probably look it up
later this year.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure if it was going to be holiday season or a little after that.
I think that's what I read when
that's
you
cool.
said we were playing this game.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. This game cost a good amount of money. If you want to track down like a like a physical copy of it. It goes for, let's see here, $200 loose, $260 complete,
Yep.
Wow.
roughly.
Yep.
So it's a pretty pricey game.
Yes, sir.
That's why we emulate. Okay, we don't have the money for that kind of stuff. Okay, that's a lot. I used to have a pretty decent sized gaming collection. That is no more. I've never owned this one though. Although I did. I used to go to these flea markets with with my buddy who owns a video game store around here. And me and another guy saw a Nintendo 64 on a table like 20 yards away. So we jet over there to go see how much the guy's asking for it. We come back, and Frank, the owner of the video game store, just holds up a Suikoden 2. And I'm like, no, you planted that for sure. Like, you had that in your pocket. And he's like, nope. He's like, it was just sitting here with a bunch of CDs. I'm like, it was the only PlayStation 1 game in there? He's like, this is the only one. I'm like, dude, that's unreal.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's funny because like I had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with this game because I've always wanted to own it, but kind of hated the fact that like Frank found it kind of like underneath my nose like that. It was a little annoying,
Caught you
but
slipping.
a little bit, yeah. But anyway, so we played it for the last couple weeks. How many hours did you guys play this game? Ryan, I know you said you played it about 5 years ago or so, and you
Yep.
said you got what, like 90% complete?
Yeah, so probably 35, 40 hours, somewhere around there.
Nice. And Yaiser throughout the last 2 weeks?
About 30.
Killed it, crushed it. I think I played it for about 6 or 7-ish, which is about on par with how much I play games during the week. It's about like 3 hours or 4 hours or so.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I obviously didn't beat it. Yaiser, you were pretty close from what I understand.
Sort of close, I think.
Maybe like another
I had like
couple hours.
all the best parts left.
Yeah, because you looked
from what it looked.
you
like,
looked
yeah.
up like the ending and stuff, right?
Yeah, all the cool bosses and shit were
Yeah.
right after where I stopped playing.
By the way, if you're afraid of spoilers, then I mean there's gonna be some probably. So just a heads up.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's get into story. Yaiser, I want you to kick it off with story
You want me
since
to kick it off?
you played the most of it and the most recently, so makes sense.
All right. The story is like pretty in depth, like, and especially if you think about all the side stories with all these goddamn characters. Would you say it was 78 characters you
So
could recruit?
I believe you could recruit like 108. I think is the
108.
total
108.
number, but
Mhm.
78 I think are playable from what I looked up.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's almost too much.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
But still, the story is it just keeps fucking going. It seems like as you're playing, it's like, so I really was trying for some reason. I didn't want to give it a 5,
yeah.
but I couldn't think of a reason not to. It's just the story is so long, so in depth, and like I love the fact that like you start with your best friend. He like infiltrates the enemy, but you think he's actually with the enemy, and then ultimately overthrows the throne, the Highland like throne. He becomes king of Highland and it's like stops the war, sort of, and then the whole new war starts, I guess. But I didn't get that far. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. I had to give it 5.
Yeah, I mean, just going based off the few hours that I played, I ended up giving it a 5 too because I could tell even from like the opening cinematic, I'm like, okay, this game is very, very story driven. Obviously, like being a JRPG, but then I actually I watched like an hour-long video of like the whole like story and how it explains everything because I wanted to know everything. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get it all in, so I needed to know as much as I could about the story and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I gave it a 5. I thought it was very, very good. I liked even like the quick like twist at the very beginning with what's his name there, the general that kind of like turns on you. He does this whole like false flag operation.
Oh, Luca? Or the other guy?
No, the first guy. What's
Raud?
that guy? Yeah, Raud.
Yep.
Yeah, so he does this whole like false flag like operation where he's basically like attacking his own village.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And that was, to me, I mean, I was just like, oh, that's pretty surprising.
Yeah.
Also, when I saw that you could import save data from the original Suikoden, I was just like, oh, okay, this is this is already super impressive, and I haven't even started the game yet.
Yeah.
So I guess from that you can import your data, and then that unlocks some extra characters that were from like the first game.
Yep.
Ryan, did you play the first game?
I didn't, so I have not played that one.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I've just been told that it's a pretty good
Yeah.
entry into the series. Actually, it started off with Suikoden 5, which for the first 40 hours is really boring, and then it gets really good. But yeah, 2 is definitely one I've sought out. Actually found it in a retro shop. At that time, I thought it
Cool.
was super expensive at $110.
Well,
You got a deal on it now.
yeah,
Mhm.
man.
All right. So Ryan, what about you for story?
Story, I really, really enjoy this one. It reminds me a lot of like a Game of Thrones kind of thing, where
Yeah.
Yeah.
everything's going back and forth. You're forging alliance with folks. You think they're on your side, then they double cross you, and vice versa. And it's just this constant movement. So it's got this like political,
Mhm.
feel behind it, but also there's all these little tiny side quests that you can go on that help, with character development and all that stuff. And honestly, the only things that I don't like about this story is that I think Luca himself is just too evil. There isn't like a side to him where you go, oh, well, I get it. Okay, maybe there's some reasoning behind it. There was like a tragic
Mhm.
backstory. You get some of that when they kill uh, his father. That yeah, his mother was like beaten and raped,
Oh
and he
yeah, yeah, yeah.
blames her for all that stuff. That's a little bit, but that was at the end where honestly, it just didn't capture me enough with that. But again, Joey, or do you pronounce it Joey or Joey?
I pronounced it Joey, but actually in one of the gameplays I saw, somebody called him Joey.
Right.
So I
So
didn't really know
yeah,
exactly
I
how.
don't either. I
Yeah.
don't know. But for all intents and purposes, I'll call him Joey. But Joey's story, I think, is probably the better one when it comes down to it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But there was a
Definitely.
part of me that wanted it to be a little bit more clean cut at the end as well, between Ryu and Joey, to kind of, I don't know. It's the most RPGs, like the bad guy that you end up having to fight at the very end of the game is the bad guy, and you defeat him and everything goes back to perfectly normal. But in this one, it like there was a feeling of like, ooh, okay. Uh so now we're friends again. Okay.
Yeah, right.
But outside of that, there's just so much to love about all of these characters. And for an RPG, I think if you have that many characters, it's really difficult to get into the space and understand the full bigger picture. And I think that they
Mhm.
did that well. Usually what you see with an RPG, it's a band of 3 to 10 that you really follow along with it.
Mhm.
And by having 108, there's opportunities for folks to die, for you to really engage in it. And in your typical RPG, nobody's going to die, more or less, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where this one, you have characters who are dying, like the assassination of uh, Lady Annabelle, right? Didn't see that one coming. I was like, what? And of course, it's done by Joey, and then you get blamed for it later on. There's a whole thing, but it's just interesting. I really really enjoyed that aspect. So for me, it's a 4.5, not a complete 5, but definitely a 4.5. There's only a small, and really they're just gripes. They're not. It doesn't take away from the whole story itself. So
Gotcha,
yeah.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. You brought up Jowie's story and how it was a little bit more interesting than
Mhm.
your own story as like the hero. Which, by the way, I named my hero. I named him Yancey because I think that that's a funny name. And Yaiser, you named him
Rick,
Rick.
leader of the OG's army.
There you go. Yeah, so there was a part at the beginning too where I felt bad for Jowie because when he was basically being framed as a traitor, his whole family disowned him.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, dang, that's pretty heavy." And then I thought that was heavy. Like there's some pretty heavy like adult themes in this game. Is it M for mature or is it teen?
It's a good question.
I don't know.
I can't remember. But either way, playing through it, there's one part where you're supposed to get past the guards and you use like one of I don't remember her name, but like the circus chick.
Oh, it's not Ellie, but the other girl that's with her.
Yeah, she takes
yeah.
the guard away just to do something.
They have an adult conversation.
It's all a conversation,
Yeah,
right?
and then they come back, and then
So
all the
funny.
characters just imply like of what she did because they're just like, no, you didn't, did you? And she's just like, all I know is that we can go by now, and that's cool for me.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Yeah, so there's a good amount of like comedy, but also like adult situations, and then very dark themes in this. That's why I felt like the story was really good.
Yeah, pretty brutal at times.
Yeah,
like the one clip we just watched before we started.
Oh yeah,
he makes that I don't know if it was a chick or whatever squeal like a pig, and then he just like cuts her fucking head off.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, jeez, this guy's no joke.
Yeah, real brutal. It's crazy. All right, Ryan, you want to kick it off with gameplay?
Sure. So I'd like so with the game, there's 3 types of combat, right? So your typical RPG just has combat. You do, occasional, interaction, or what's the term I'm looking for?
Turn-based?
Like turn-based RPG?
Well, it's turn-based for sure. I was thinking like when you're out in the, the world map and you random encounters. That's the word I'm looking for.
There
So
you
your
go.
average
Yeah.
RPG just has random encounters. This definitely has that, but
Mhm.
it takes that version of combat. It also has a second one where it's the duels. Often it's done between 2 people who are main characters within the story itself, and it
Mhm.
becomes like a rock paper scissors thing where you
Yeah.
can attack, defend, or wild attack, and you have to like figure out based off of what they're saying what you think they're going to do. I think
Yeah.
that's cool. Way to mix it up. And then the third one, of course, is those massive battles that are reminiscent of things like Advance Wars or Final Fantasy Tactics. Obviously not as advanced as those, basically you move units and they can attack. It's cool. I like it. It's fun. And so by having that varied amount of gameplay with it, I think really makes it so that it doesn't get stale, and that's probably, I think, most people who aren't into RPGs, that's what they don't like about it, is it's the same gameplay over and over again. You're just hitting the button, hitting the button, hitting the button. And with this one too, there's some quality of life stuff that I think really helps with it as well. The auto attack feature is awesome. Absolutely awesome. The fact that you can do unite attacks, so depending on who's in your party, you might be able to do different attacks as a result in your typical turn-based combat. And then the ruins, of course, are, I think, a great feature for casting magic. And the fact that it tells you what it's going to do, how much damage it potentially could have, what repercussions of using this rune might be. This person's going to be off balance if I end up doing that and they lose a turn. I love that. Because you know how many times you've been in an RPG where you're like, oh, what's this cool item? What does this do? I have no idea. And you're using, this is crap. And
Right.
Or this is going to affect me negatively and I'm going to lose as a result.
It's funny you say that, though, because as a kid growing up, really the only RPGs I ever played, I played Pokemon, which I actually just saw a funny Twitter argument today saying that Pokemon is not a JRPG. It's a monster catching game. And I'm like, it can be both. But anyway, but somebody was like, yeah, no, it's not a JRPG. It's only monster catch. Anyway, we're not talking about Pokemon, but in Pokemon, oftentimes like you would get like a new move, and as a kid, I'm just like, oh, growl. What's the growl do? And then I'm like, oh, it just like lowers the opponent's attack. That's stupid. And then I would only keep moves that did actual damage in that game. I don't know if everybody else was like that as a kid.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Like, is anybody keeping Leer like longer than level 7? You know what I mean?
No, probably.
But no, I thought that was really cool too. You brought up a great point. It was probably my favorite aspect to this game in general, which seems kind of crazy, is that all of like the different combinations of characters you could put into a party and see like all the different unites. I thought that was awesome. Seeing like who tag teams well together, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you get introduced to it very early on, because like those circus people that you get, they have a specific unite. Even though that one dude, the big dude, he kind of sucks.
He's strong,
Bolgan? Is that
whatever. But I feel like he missed all the time. I had him in my party for a while, dude. He never fucking hit anybody.
Plus, when he does hit somebody, he damages himself.
Right, he gets unbalanced for a turn.
Yeah.
So it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
But yeah, I thought I'm sorry, Ryan. What did you say the gameplay was, or you didn't?
I didn't put a rating, but I would give it a
Okay.
4. I think it's really
Okay.
strong. Obviously there could be some improvements upon it, but I think it's good.
Yeah. Yaiser, what do you think about gameplay?
I gave it a 4 as well. Like you said, it was fun, like throwing all these people in the party and seeing who jibes with who to get what unite moves.
Yeah.
Like there was 3 knights, the red knight and the blue knight, I forget their name, and then one other guy. They had this unite move called like the pretty boy attack or whatever, where they did like 3 times damage to one enemy or whatever. But
I
like,
didn't see that, but that's
yeah,
crazy.
that was a little later in the game when you get those guys. And then trying to figure out like what runes work best for with what people, and like what best like weapon runes are good for like all your weapons and stuff. I thought there was like a lot to it. And then the other 2 combat modes, a one-on-one duel is where I kind of died and gave up a little while ago. So but it was cool. It's definitely like different, at least to have 3 different.
So I don't know 100%, but I believe from what I read that the original Suikoden was primarily that rock paper scissors combat system,
Really?
and they had switched it up to like these 3 different combat systems, and people who played the original Suikoden said it was like a breath of fresh air, because that one combat system throughout the entire game got very repetitive and very kind of boring.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, if you like that combat system, I feel like, I mean, I didn't get far enough to get to that. I
Mhm.
never had any one-on-one duels, but it sounds like a pretty interesting system. At least I don't know many other games that kind of do something like that. But I gave the gameplay 3.5, and here's why I'm a little bit down on it than you guys. I mean, you guys both gave it a 4. I gave it a 3.5. We're not that far apart, but I gave it a 3.5 because it's so much. Like all the characters, it's very, very overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's almost a turnoff to me when a game or even like a movie, for example, is introduced to me and they throw 20 different character names at me at once, and I'm just like, I don't remember who's this guy's name. I have to basically identify people by the actions that they did in the game because I can't remember everybody's name right off the bat.
Yeah.
I know some people love that. Some people love like the huge casts, huge ensembles, and like I don't know that necessarily like I'm one of those people, but I also grew up with, I don't know. It's weird because, again, to liken it to Pokemon, like there's 150 of those guys. I remember all of them. So
that's true.
So that's kind of weird, but I don't know. I've also been playing that game for like 20 years.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm with you there. I think I would have scored it higher if it were just a little shrunken down a little bit.
Yeah.
My issue too was just the amount of grinding you had to do in certain areas to get ruins from certain enemies. Like those killer bunnies, you had to grind to get. I think it was the double down ruin.
Oh, I only had one of those.
Yeah.
I didn't grind for them.
Right. If you grind for them, I think I heard, if I remember right, it's like 2% chance of getting it. Right. So if you want one for everybody in your party,
have fun.
Yeah.
No. I have one more gripe with gameplay though, was like the damage scale. Like you never really got up to deal like a ton of damage. Like sure, in like a Final Fantasy, you'll start out dealing like double digits, and then like in a little while start dealing low triple digits. But like in a few hours, you're dealing almost 1,000, and then into the thousands.
Yeah.
Like if you deal 1,000 damage in this game, it's like that's fucking like huge damage.
Right.
I was a little disappointed that like I'm dealing like 120 damage.
So you don't feel like
a lot.
You don't feel like your characters are really growing to
Right. I put 30 hours in this game. I'm still only dealing like 200 damage, maybe. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I could get that.
Yeah.
For visuals, I'll kick it off with visuals. I think they're absolutely amazing. We've said plenty of times on this show, especially when we go back to games in this era, the mid 90s, it's the era of 3D, and it's so hard to look at sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The programmers and like the developers, they went into this and they looked at the 3D technology at the time, and they weren't impressed with it. They said that it looked like it was being forced. It looked like something that wouldn't hold up. And oh my God, were they right? So they used sprite graphics like they would back in the 16-bit consoles.
Yep.
They use sprite graphics, and it looks fantastic.
Love
and that
it.
combined with like in one of the first scenes where it's raining, and then they go to jump off of the cliff into the water, and there's like the thunder and the lightning, and it looks amazing. I gave it a 5. I don't know that there's any PS1 game that I've ever played that looks this good.
Nice.
Yaiser?
Nice, man. I was between 4.5 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Wouldn't I?
Where are
you gonna
you
give
at?
it 2 5s? I'm gonna give it 4.5.
Okay.
But it is beautiful, and those are, I think, like my favorite type of graphics too. Like you're saying, man, just those 16-bit 2D. It's beautiful.
It's perfect.
Yeah, they did it well.
Yeah,
Ryan?
each character has really a nice color to them as well. They're not muted. When it goes to fighting huge bosses, each one of them is really, really well done. So that whole don't want to go into 3D thing, they're kind of doing it with the bosses, but that's exactly where you want to see it. You don't want to see it kind of, in the
Right.
everyday mundane.
Mhm.
And the cutscenes, I think, are fantastic. I really, really enjoy a lot of those cutscenes, even if it's just changing it to like a sepia tone look so that it's old or it's in the past. That whole gimmick itself, I think, really plays to this whole thing. And I agree. There's so much to not like about the graphics on the PS1 64 or N64 era, and I think they did it right.
Yeah.
The only other example I could think of that is probably Valkyrie Profile on PlayStation 1.
I've never played it, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, and it uses a similar thing where rather than it going completely full 3D, there's a lot of sprite work in it as well. So to me, I gave it a 5. I think it's
awesome.
Probably one of the most endearing parts of this game is that at the end of the day, it just looks fantastic all the way through.
All right,
yeah, 100%.
Bump it up.
Oh, he's bumping it up.
Yeah, if I gave Zelda a 5, I mean, it looks almost exactly the same, if not a little better.
I think it looks better than Zelda.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
So I got to give it a 5. You're right.
I mean, it looks better than Zelda, but like if Zelda was made for the PS1, I feel like it would have looked similar.
Very similar.
That's not a knock on Zelda. It looks great.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to add to visuals in a video that I watched, because I really wanted to learn more about like the development of this game, and I found out that like most RPGs, especially sprite-based RPGs, there's something that they do where they have a set amount of emotions and like for the characters' faces, and they use those emotions. They just recycle them throughout the game for certain situations that fit that emotion. In this game, they used almost exclusively different emotions and different facial features for almost every single scene.
Oh, wow.
Which is
notice.
just an amazing amount of detail put into the game.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give props to that because I thought that was a pretty amazing fact.
Yeah, very cool.
Getting over to sound. Yaiser, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a 4 here because the music was good, but like it gets a little repetitive. They're not like long songs. They're pretty short and they repeat. But it is good. It's good music, but if you're in the same place for a while, it starts to get a little repetitive. Just a little bit.
Little Simpsons-y.
Not that bad, but yeah. Similar.
Yeah, I watched again watching videos, not playing the game. No, I did watch a video also about the sound design, and the woman that created the soundtrack to this game, she did it all by herself, one woman. And most RPGs from this era had maybe 30 to 50 different tracks in it. Suikoden 2 has upwards of 80 different tracks, which is pretty amazing for one person to create. After Suikoden 2, she actually retired because she felt so overworked and had zero time to spend with her family, and now she just raises her son.
Poor lady.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like some of the all the work that the developers put into this game. I went with Yaiser though. I gave it a 4. I do agree. There's nothing that stands out necessarily. Like there's nothing I'd put on like a video game playlist, but man, she nailed like the ambiance of the game perfectly. Like all the sounds go great with every environment that you enter. So really no complaints.
I thought one really good touch was there was one of those like strategy battles that you lost and had to retreat, and when you got back to your castle, no music at all.
I love when they do that.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good touch.
Like, again, I'm gonna bring it up for probably the 30th time on this show, but Avatar: The Last Airbender. Okay, there's a part. There's normally when they do battle scenes in that show, there's pretty heavy like battle music or whatever, like high energy music. And there was one battle where this guy ambushed them while they were sleeping, and instead of this pickup in energy with music playing, you really got the sense that they were fighting tired. There was no music. It was completely quiet besides for all the sound effects, and I thought it was a perfect touch. So it's funny that you also like that in the game.
I thought that was cool.
Ryan, what about you for sound?
I give it a 3.5, and there's just one major gripe that I think is only prevalent in the North American release of the game. When you do your large combat battles, there is no music whatsoever. And to me, that was a miss. But I guess that actually has to do with and I was watching something before we started here, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, I get it. I guess they weren't able to remaster that sound for the North American release. So this is I'm giving it a 3.5, but really it's because of just how I experienced the game in North America, more or less. But outside of that, I think you're all spot on. I think that the music itself is really well done. The combat theme is always great. If you don't have a good combat theme, your whole game is going to suck.
Yeah, right.
So glad that was one that stuck out to me is in Necklord's theme, where it's like a mixture between almost like electric guitar and organ. I think that's perfect for a vampire. So I thought that was done really well. And for the most part, it captures the ambiance of it. It's just that one thing that it's silent. And in fact, if I remember right too, there's another spot where you ask a girl to sing for you in order to recruit, and it's 60 seconds of silence. And that again, as I understand,
that's crazy. Yeah,
as I understand, that's just because the North American release didn't have that track. But
oh well, weird.
That is weird that they wouldn't at least like replace it.
Right.
But I heard that and I'll get into this a little bit with the aged because I knocked it down a little bit for this. The translation can be pretty rough in certain spots, and in the documentary basically that I watched, they said that the translation was so bad from Japan that when they sent over the script, that they just sent it in what's it called? They basically just sent it in like a file where you had to, instead of like line for line who said what, you had like it was all sent in like code, like the game's code essentially.
Oh my
God.
The somebody just copy pasted it from the code. That's terrible.
Yeah. So the guy, I think there was maybe 3 people that were working on the translation of this game, and one guy got interviewed for this like documentary that I watched, and the guy was basically saying that himself played 90 to 120 hours of this game and just replaying the same things over and over again, and they had to essentially rewrite the entire game because there was no context given like to who was saying what and when. They basically had to like,
oh my God.
Yeah, they said it was awful. Like it was the worst experience they ever had like translating a game. So I think like all of these problems that I've said, like from the creation of the game, it's pretty amazing it turned out how good it was.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
But kind of, getting into aged, I had it at a 4.5. I knocked it down a little bit because of translation and because of just how overwhelming all the characters, can be and that kind of thing. Visually, the game looks perfect. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if this was like a new like indie developed game that came out. Like it looks like it could be like a new game by an indie developer. I gave it a 4.
Yeah.
I thought it aged really, really well. Yaiser?
It's funny. A guy also had it at 4.5, but I knocked it down to 4. My only problem that made this game feel old to me was that you couldn't run diagonally.
Yeah, that was rough, right?
Yeah, it really bothered me at times.
Yeah.
It's funny because I didn't notice what the problem was. I just noticed that the running was a little clunky.
You get only 90-degree angles.
But that's what it was.
It's the only thing that really bothered me, other than 1,000,004 characters, was it?
1,006,000, I think. I didn't count them all out, but there's quite a bit. Ryan, what about you for aged?
I give it a 4.5. Just I
Cool.
think you're right. There are certain things that could certainly be improved upon. Hopefully that happens in the HD remaster. But outside of that, it's a game that if I wanted to go back and have a good time and enjoy a decent narrative with interesting gameplay, absolutely, this would definitely be on that list. So
Yeah, I agree.
For sure, that's awesome. Do you guys have anything else you want to add to the game in general, or Ryan? You said you've played other entries in the Suikoden series. Is this one the best one you've played?
It is, absolutely, bar none, because the action happens right away. Yeah, granted, as soon as the false flag attack happens, and then you start doing some chores for someone else, that's a little bit like, all right, let's get back to the real stuff. But once the game starts kicking, it's like the momentum just keeps coming.
I actually thought that part was kind of funny. Just so you get captured, and then it's like, okay, go get us some flour, and then go get us some rope, and then Joey comes back, and he's like, you know what? Let's use that rope to escape, and then we escape, and then we get caught again, and then the people that originally were like, hey, you're our prisoners. They saved you, and then they're like, well, you're still our prisoner, so
stay here. But like you're cool, but you still gotta.
You still gotta chill out here for a little bit.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty funny. I did think that the actual, again, going back to story a little bit, I thought the story was pretty well written, especially knowing all the translation problems. It's pretty crazy that it came out that good, but there were some issues.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I had a good time playing it. I hope to pick up is it a physical release? Do you guys know?
I don't know offhand, but I looked it up, and it sounds like it's only just says coming in 2023. So
it is next year.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna pick it up physical. If it's only digital, I'll still pick it up. I know Yaiser likes to make fun of me because I'm not a digital guy at all.
Well, I get it, but it's just so much easier,
It's a little easier, yeah.
But
I like the physical. I like seeing it,
I get it.
Like I could have just downloaded the Cowabunga collection, but I got the big box with all the dumb stuff that you don't need.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ryan, do you plan on picking up the remake when that comes out?
Absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to playing Suikoden 1, checking that out as well. So
yeah,
the fact that both of them are coming out, I'll probably end up doing Suikoden 1 first just to see what it's all about. I'll get bored, and then I'll just start playing Suikoden 2.
There you go.
I might keep playing this because I feel like after watching the video of what I had left, I was like, all this like cool shit got it. Like Necrolord gets introduced, and like finally some cool looking bosses like the rock golem, and then like the skeleton dragon. Like I want to fight those things. Like I was just chasing around the same dude for 30 hours.
Plus you got a cool little controller to turn your phone into a Switch now. So
yeah, it's so cool. I love it.
He's got this little. It's made by Razer, right?
Yeah, it's a Razer Kishi.
Yeah,
I gotta check this out. Let me see this.
Here, I'll show it right to you, man.
He's got it right
so
here.
It folds up nice like this. Looks like just like a regular. And then pop this. It'll stretch out. I'll put it on my phone and put it back in the camera real quick.
Yeah, so he picked this up. You got it used ish?
I got
like $30 on eBay.
New open box, $30 on eBay.
Wow.
Yeah. I bet he bought the wrong one. I bet he bought the one for the Samsung when he meant to buy it for the.
He had a bunch of them.
Oh, then they fell off a truck or something.
They probably fell off a truck or fell off a truck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here it is.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, bro. It feels.
Doesn't it look like a little Switch?
Yeah,
it does.
Girlfriend sleeping, and it feels a lot like sturdier and tighter than I thought it would. So I'm happy with it.
It's got to beat the buttons on the phone.
Oh yeah,
by like a mile.
Yeah, very frustrating, those buttons.
And you've been using that to play Suikoden too?
Oh yeah, dude. That's why I played it for 30 hours, because I could just sit on my couch.
Take it wherever. Yeah.
Not a sponsor, by the way.
They should be though.
They should be. You're right.
Shout out Razer.
Yeah, right.
Send some shit over.
So would we relive this game? I think we answered that already. We're all gonna probably go out and get the remake when it comes out.
I'm gonna keep living it, I think.
yeah, you got to finish the game still.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we're gonna randomize to see what game we're playing next week. And while we do that, Ryan, do you want to think of a game to recommend for us to put on our list?
The Lost Vikings.
Oh, we had it ready.
He had it ready already. That's for the SNES, right?
It is.
Is it a beat 'em up?
It is
a platformer.
Puzzle-based platformer.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
So
like
it's got
that.
a whole bunch of different levels, and basically you have 3 characters. One of them is a guy who has a sword. He uses all the weapons. The other guy is the guy who runs fast, and the third guy, who is my favorite, happens to hold the shield. He's fat and he farts, and that will allow him to move up and float down the screen. So
That's sick.
a lot of
Willy
really
Wonka
great
stuff.
humor. It's a guy from Silicon and Synapse. They are the original guys before they became Blizzard.
Oh, okay.
So essentially,
Oh,
this was when they were living out of their parents' houses and making games, and it's really, really well done.
Awesome.
very
Yeah,
cool.
definitely got to put that on the list.
Mhm.
Have you ever played 3 Dirty Dwarves, by the way?
I have not.
Oh, you talked about it.
You were talking about how it's like 3 characters. I don't know if they're all on the same. I don't know if they're all on the screen at the same time like they are in 3 Dirty Dwarves, but just kind of reminded me of it the way you were kind of talking about it.
If it's anything like Lost Vikings, I'm in.
To be honest, I have no idea. I've never played Lost Vikings. I've played 3 Dirty Dwarves. That one's pretty fun.
Mhm.
All right, let's randomize this game and see where we're at. All right. Yaiser, you're going to love it, buddy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Platformer.
platformer.
Developed by Rare for the Super Nintendo, released in 1995. It is a sequel.
Okay,
Any guesses?
it's another Donkey Kong game. Is it Diddy Kong?
You nailed it, buddy. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, which
Nice.
I've always had a little bit of an issue with that name because Diddy's Conquest is super confusing, and I always thought it was Diddy Kong's Quest.
Everyone does.
Oh, Diddy's
Everyone thinks it's that.
Conquest.
It's Conquest, yes.
Yeah, like it's a play on words of conquest.
It's a
Yeah.
pun, yeah, right.
Conquest.
Yeah.
I get it, but it's annoying. It makes me mad. Game's very good. I've played it before. We'll get
That's
to
cool.
that. We will be joined by Lord Hoyle on TikTok. He
Oh,
joined us
coming
last
back.
season for Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. So he's getting pretty lucky with these good Super Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Although I don't think we've played a bad Super Nintendo game yet. So
No,
it's been probably our favorite console so far.
probably definitely highest rated.
Yeah, I mean,
If we
we've
would
played
put 'em
some
all
gems
together.
for it so far.
Unless, I mean, Xbox, we only played one game and that was pretty
Well,
high
true.
rated.
Yeah, Fable was pretty good. Fable was pretty good. Ryan, you want to tell the guys where everybody where they can find you again?
Sure. So if you're looking for me, I am at RetroGameBrews. If you're looking for the Gamers Week podcast, you can find us at at Gamers Week PC or anywhere that you listen to podcasts by searching for Gamers Week podcast.
Cool, man.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for joining us. And next week, check out the Donkey Kong 2 game because we will be playing that one. And it's going to be a
Awesome.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Of course.
course.
Take care, everybody.
Peace.